Hello, my name is Amy Nicole, and today I will be talking to you about my project in self-directed help seeking and skill development. In my project, we are aiming to study how people help seek in agile research studios such as DTR. My project aims to scaffold help seeking and teach users how to help seek for themselves. The three main steps in help seeking are identifying what you need help with, identifying those helpers and resources that can help you with that problem, and then actually following through with those helpers and getting help from them. In this quarter, I focused on this third step in the help seeking process, which is helping users actually follow through and get help from the helpers that we have identified for them with our system, as we saw that this was the largest problem area with our existing system. So in general, currently students only really rely on their existing knowledge and the knowledge that they have of helper expertise from the guru list. For example, novice and intermediate students don't really have the necessary experience to know a lot about everyone in the community and have a lower range of knowledge about helpers. In addition, the self-reported gurus on the guru list don't exactly cover all of the topics, such as lib and process related topics that people may need help with in the community. Also, students who can help with different aspects often don't actually self-identify that they can help with those aspects. This causes people to rely too heavily on their existing knowledge and the people they already know, such as SIG members and people they have worked with previously. So overall, people are not really comfortable reaching out to those people that they don't know very well, whether it's because of lack of knowledge about people they don't know, or because reaching out to unknown people out of the blue is not always very comfortable. So in general, with the current design, we found that students have the hardest time actually reaching out to any helpers we recommend them. However, we cannot just tell people not to feel self-conscious, or we cannot force people to reach out to others. So we aim to develop a system that gets the hardest part done for them and makes reaching out more comfortable for both parties. And instead of telling the students, showing them that they don't need to refrain from reaching out to people. In the beginning of this quarter, I reviewed much previous data from previous experiments with the prototype in order to find a key obstacle in help seeking to be the following through with helpers. To further expand on this, I conducted interviews to understand why these individuals may not follow through. And with this information in mind, I designed a system to make the help seeking process more comfortable and help people follow through with the helpers we suggest. Finally, I began testing this design that I created, with initial tests helping me to better understand the obstacles to following through and helping me to understand what people want to be able to see with the system. The main thing I learned was that people want a say in which helpers to choose, and so I ran another shorter test with this autonomy given to the user. These tests have focused on testing only part of my design, however, and I plan to test the whole help-seeking process with my new design in the upcoming quarter. As a help seeker myself, and from interviews with other undergraduate students and graduate students alike, I know that it can be hard for people to both seek help or even reach out to other people that they don't know out of the blue. But I also spent a lot of time at the beginning of this quarter digging through actual student responses and data from past studies run with our current prototype. Through looking through this data, I found that there was a key part of the help-seeking process that users were finding difficult with our prototype, which was actually following through with the helpers that we gave them. Users consistently said that they would not or did not actually reach out to our suggested helpers. The reasons that they gave were actually quite consistent and fell into two main categories: comfort and their knowledge of the helper. Here I have broken down the main reasons that we found. Under knowledge of the helper, people didn't know if the helper actually had enough knowledge, enough specific knowledge about their own project. So they didn't know if the helper had enough specific knowledge to be able to help them. They also did not know if the helper even had enough time to help them, and they felt bad reaching out because of that. On the comfort side, which sort of overlaps with the time aspect. They didn't want to be a burden or a bother, which leads them to instead prefer asking people at large for help, so as not to put a specific individual on the spot, or they just prefer that they use the guru list as those people have already implicitly offered themselves as helpers. So, getting into the design that I created to overcome these barriers to actually following through with helpers. I developed an idea for a system that would actually help students learn to reach out to the suggested helpers. Since the helper knows better than anyone if they can help the student, this system makes the initial contact with the student's chosen helper to see if the helper has the time and has the knowledge to actually help. Once the helper confirms that they can help, the system creates a group chat with the student and the helper and uses a prompt to promote communication between them. This means that neither party has to make the awkward first move and helps to promote communication and clear planning for the meeting to actually take place, which is key to creating follow through for this help seeking. Here you can see an example of how that would actually work. Firstly, the students would fill out these prompts, which would help them understand their blocker more precisely. In the second to last box, we can also see that they fully state their problem statement clearly and concisely. Once they have filled out those prompts, the prompts are help the system understand who can help this person with this specific blocker. This is an example of how the helpers would be suggested to someone. And as you can see, we prioritize undergraduate students, once again, to prevent the burden on graduate students and SIG mentors that I talked about at the beginning. At this point, it is important for me to note that the previous research also found that not everyone actually wanted help after filling out those prompts, as the prompts had actually helped them understand how to tackle the blocker on their own, because they had more clearly understood the blocker. This is a good success of the prompts, and so has led me to include a question in my system that allows the user to opt out of help seeking once they have done the prompts. Now, assuming that they did choose a helper and they do want external help, the system asks for a help deadline that they need the help done by, the specific help request that we saw that they had written in the prompts, and the expertise that they need from their helper. This then allows the system to send a message to the potential helper, where an example of this message is seen below, including all of this information. The help by date allows the potential helper to see if they actually have the time to help the user. Once the helper confirms that they can help the user, the system creates a group chat and uses a prompt to promote communication, as I mentioned before. After further testing, I plan to implement the system on either a site or with a bot, as right now I have been acting as the bot myself and sending these prompts manually. However, we need to test this system further before I can justify creating a whole bot in order to do this. So how did I test this design? The first study I ran aimed to understand how people felt about the system actually reaching out for them, as well as how helpers felt being reached out to in this way. I ran the study on all of the members of DTR at once during a designated status update time. Each student went through the prompts given that you saw before and sent me their helpers and the information I listed previously: help request, expertise needed, and help deadline, so that I could use a Slack account to act as a bot and send the corresponding prompts. In this study, I did not give choice over helpers, as I had initially planned to design the system to reach out to only the top helpers. Through these methods, I was able to actually collect data on how people used the prompts and how helpers responded to prompts. Additionally, I used a survey to gauge participants' reactions to the system from both the helper and the student side. I didn't, however, test the group chat aspect of the design yet. Many people in the study reported that they did not know why each helper was chosen for them, and that they wanted to choose which of the helpers was reached out to themselves. And since I want them to learn how to help seek and how to choose a helper themselves, I need to include more information on the helpers. I need to do further research on what this information is. I also found that helpers said that the requests that they got in this format were quite helpful and precise. Um, and a helper even went as far as to say that they prefer it over the normal way of seeking help. However, they did think that it was a bit impersonal. So another future endeavor could be to personalize these messages more. Finally, after seeing that people wanted the choice of helpers, I ran a short, small study on one person, which I plan to repeat in the upcoming quarter. I ran through the system with them without actually reaching out to their helper, which I didn't tell the user about in order to not affect their comfort level. So, pretending that I would actually reach out to the helper they chose. I gave the user the ability to choose who was reached out to. I then interviewed them on the comfort level that they felt and how they actually chose the helper that they did. This study confirmed a smaller finding from the previous study that people wanted to see sprint summaries. I also noticed that in order to choose the helper, the user actually relied a lot on their knowledge of how similar the helper's project was to their project. This shows me that I may want to include summaries about project similarities somehow in my information on helpers. In general, I learned that I need to add more info on helpers if I'm going to give the user choice over who to reach out to. And so, more generally, I need to understand what to show about helpers, whether that be sprint summaries, a short summary of their recent work, or project similarities, etc. I also need to test the full system as we have only tested the first stages of this system. Like I mentioned, I have yet to test the success of actually creating group chats. By testing the system, I can better understand the specific obstacles users face to following through, which is important to understanding if those obstacles are actually addressed by my current design characteristics. So in general, people have trouble reaching out to others that they do not know. So we need to somehow facilitate help seeking from the suggested helpers. And through doing so, teach users to seek their own help. This system is meant to act as training wheels until the user has built up confidence, experience, and understanding that reaching out to and working with people that they do not know is beneficial. Thank you so much for listening.